Dr. Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stared at the impossible readings on her scanner. Deep beneath the abandoned mining facility on Kepler 442b, something was calling to her equipment in ways that defied every law of physics she had studied for the past 30 years. "Marcus, come look at this," she called to her research partner, her voice echoing through the cramped underground laboratory they had established 3 months ago. Marcus Chen dropped his geological samples and hurried over, his boots clanging against the metal flooring they had installed over the rough cave surface. "What is it now, Elena? Another false reading from the interference?" Elena shook her head, her dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of the scanner display. "No. This is different. The mineral composition down here is unlike anything we've encountered before. Look at these density readings." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the numbers scrolling across the screen. His expression changed from mild interest to complete bewilderment. "That can't be right. According to this, the material is simultaneously lighter than aluminum and denser than osmium. That's physically impossible." "That's what I thought too," Elena said, pulling up another display. "But I've run the scans 14 times. The readings are consistent. Whatever is embedded in these cave walls represents a completely new form of matter." The research station above ground buzzed with activity as news of their discovery reached the Earth Colonial Authority. Within hours, their small 2-person expedition had grown into a full scientific task force. Ships arrived carrying metallurgists, quantum physicists, and military advisors, all eager to understand what the humans had found in the depths of this remote planet. General Patricia Morrison stepped out of her transport ship, her gray uniform crisp despite the long journey from Earth. She had overseen mineral extraction operations across 12 different star systems, but something about this discovery felt different. The preliminary reports she had received during her 3-week journey had been deliberately vague. Marked with security classifications she rarely saw outside of weapons development projects. "Dr. Vasquez," she said, approaching the small woman who was directing the placement of new equipment around the cave entrance. "I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here." Elena looked up from her tablet, noting the general's intense expression. "It's difficult to explain without seeing it firsthand, General. The material seems to exist in a state that our current understanding of physics cannot fully account for." "Try me," Morrison said, crossing her arms. Elena gestured toward the cave entrance. "The substance appears to be naturally occurring, but its atomic structure is unlike anything in our periodic table. When we attempt to analyze it with standard equipment, it registers as multiple different elements simultaneously. Carbon, titanium, tungsten, and several others we cannot identify." They descended into the cave system, their path now illuminated by powerful LED arrays that had been installed along the walls. The deeper they went, the more apparent it became that they were not dealing with ordinary geological formations. The walls themselves seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and the air carried a faint metallic taste that made everyone slightly uncomfortable. "Here," Elena said, stopping in front of a wall section that had been cleared of loose rock and debris. "This is where we first detected the anomalous readings." Morrison approached the wall and placed her gloved hand against its surface. The material felt warm, almost alive, and seemed to respond to her touch with subtle color changes. "Have you been able to extract any samples?" "That's where things get interesting," Marcus said, joining them with a case of specialized tools. "Traditional extraction methods don't work. Diamond-tipped drills break against it. Laser cutters have no effect. We've tried everything short of nuclear charges." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "And nuclear charges? Not recommended in an enclosed space," Elena said quickly. "But we did manage to collect some material that had naturally flaked off from the walls. The pieces are microscopic, but even those tiny amounts demonstrate extraordinary properties." Back in the laboratory, Elena showed Morrison a small containment chamber holding what appeared to be metallic dust. "These particles weigh almost nothing individually, but when we attempted to compress them, they demonstrated resistance levels that exceeded our equipment's capabilities." Morrison watched as Elena activated a demonstration. A single grain of the mysterious material, no larger than a speck of sand, was placed between two hydraulic plates designed to exert enormous pressure. As the plates closed together, readings on nearby monitors showed stress levels climbing rapidly, but the particle remained unchanged. "We stopped the test at 47,000 pounds per square inch," Elena explained. "The material showed no signs of deformation whatsoever." "What about heat resistance?" Morrison asked, her military mind already considering potential applications. Marcus pulled up another set of data on his workstation. "We exposed samples to temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. No change in structure or properties. It doesn't melt, doesn't become brittle, doesn't expand or contract." Morrison was quiet for several minutes, processing the implications. They had always been at a disadvantage against alien civilizations that possessed superior technology. Energy weapons had dominated interstellar warfare for centuries, and human ships relied primarily on speed and cunning, rather than armor, to survive conflicts. "How much of this material do you estimate is present in these caves?" she asked finally. Elena consulted her geological surveys. "Based on our initial scans, this entire mountain range appears to be riddled with veins of the substance. We could potentially extract thousands of tons if we develop the proper techniques." Morrison felt a chill run down her spine. "Doctor, I need you to understand something. This information cannot leave this planet until we fully understand what we're dealing with. If word of this discovery reaches the wrong ears, it could shift the balance of power in ways we're not prepared for." Elena nodded solemnly. "We've been operating under strict communication protocols since the first readings came back anomalous. Over the following weeks, the research team expanded their operations dramatically. Engineers arrived with equipment designed specifically for handling unknown materials, while xenogeologists studied the formation patterns to understand how such a substance could occur naturally. Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead materials scientist on the team, made the breakthrough they had been hoping for. "The key isn't mechanical extraction," she announced during a team meeting in the surface facility. "The material responds to specific electromagnetic frequencies. When we expose it to a particular wavelength pattern, it becomes temporarily malleable." Morrison leaned forward in her chair. "Malleable enough to shape into useful forms?" "More than that," Sarah continued, her excitement obvious. "When the electromagnetic field is removed, the material returns to its previous properties, but retains whatever shape we've formed it into. We can literally sculpt it like clay and then have it become indestructible again." The implications were staggering. Traditional manufacturing required tremendous heat, pressure, or chemical processes to shape materials into desired forms. This substance could be molded at room temperature and then become virtually indestructible. Marcus had been working with a team of quantum physicists to understand the fundamental nature of their discovery. "We think the material exists in a state of quantum superposition at the atomic level," he explained. "It's simultaneously exhibiting properties of multiple elements, which explains why our scanners gave such confusing readings initially." "Can you stabilize it for large-scale production?" Morrison asked. "We're developing techniques now," Sarah replied. "The electromagnetic manipulation requires precise frequency control, but it's entirely achievable with our current technology." Morrison stood and walked to the window overlooking the mining operation that had sprung up around the cave system. Massive excavation equipment was carefully removing layers of ordinary rock to expose more of the mysterious material, which they had begun calling terrestrium in honor of its apparent Earth-human discovery. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, turning back to the assembled team, "I believe we may have just discovered something that will change the course of human history, but we need to proceed very carefully. This technology must be developed in secret until we understand its full potential and can deploy it strategically." Elena felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. As a scientist, she was thrilled by the discovery of something that challenged fundamental assumptions about matter and physics. As a human being living in a galaxy filled with potentially hostile alien civilizations, she understood the military implications were equally significant. The research continued around the clock, as teams worked to understand every aspect of terrestrium's properties. Initial tests confirmed that shaped pieces maintained their indestructibility across a wide range of conditions. Energy weapons that could slice through traditional armor had absolutely no effect on even thin sheets of the material. Morrison received daily reports that she encrypted and transmitted to Earth through secure military channels. The response from Earth Colonial Authority leadership was swift and decisive. Expand operations immediately. Maintain absolute secrecy. And begin developing practical applications as quickly as possible. As the operation grew, so did the security measures. The planet was declared a restricted military zone, and all personnel underwent extensive background checks and signed agreements that would keep them silent for the rest of their lives. Elena stood at the edge of the excavation site one evening, watching the sun set over the alien landscape. In just a few months, this remote world had become potentially the most important location in human space. The material they had discovered could revolutionize everything from spacecraft construction to planetary defense systems. But she also wondered about the implications for galactic politics. For centuries, humans had survived through diplomacy, speed, and clever tactics. If they suddenly possessed defensive capabilities that made energy weapons obsolete, how would other species react? Marcus joined her at the Overlook, holding a small sample of shaped terrestrium in his hand. "It's beautiful in its own way," he said, watching the material's surface reflect the dying sunlight. "Almost like it was waiting for us to find it." Elena nodded, but her thoughts were already turning to the challenges ahead. They had solved the mystery of extraction and shaping. But now came the much more complex task of determining how to use this discovery responsibly. The material could make human ships virtually invulnerable, but it could also trigger an arms race that might destabilize the entire galaxy. As night fell over the mining operation, both scientists understood that their discovery had moved far beyond the realm of pure research. They had found something that would reshape the balance of power among intelligent species, and the responsibility for that discovery now rested heavily on their shoulders. The future of humanity might very well depend on how wisely they used the gift they had uncovered deep beneath an alien world. 6 months after the initial discovery, the first terrestrium armored ship rolled out of the classified shipyards orbiting Neptune. The vessel looked unremarkable from the outside. Its hull painted the standard gray of Earth colonial navy ships, but beneath that ordinary exterior lay plates of the revolutionary material that had been carefully shaped and integrated into every critical system. Admiral James Harrison stood in the observation deck of the construction facility, watching as teams of engineers conducted final inspections on humanity's first truly indestructible warship. The project had consumed enormous resources and required the coordination of thousands of personnel across multiple star systems, all sworn to secrecy about the true nature of their work. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" said Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been promoted to head the Terrestrium Development Program after her discovery on Kepler 442b. Harrison nodded, though his expression remained serious. "Beautiful and dangerous. Every intelligence report we receive suggests that other species are beginning to notice changes in our ship construction patterns. It won't be long before someone puts the pieces together." Elena had spent the last half-year traveling between Earth, the mining operation, and various research facilities, overseeing the development of practical applications for their miraculous material. The learning curve had been steep, but human ingenuity had once again proven adaptable to new challenges. "The Zephyrians have been particularly curious," Harrison continued. "Their trade delegation asked pointed questions about our recent mineral surveys during last week's diplomatic meeting. The Zephyrians were one of the more peaceful species humans had encountered, but their advanced sensor technology made them excellent at detecting changes in material compositions. If anyone was going to discover the secret of terrestrium, it would likely be them." Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the ship's technical specifications. "The armor plating is only the beginning. We've integrated terrestrium into the power core shielding, the navigation systems, and even the life support equipment. This ship could survive a direct hit from a stellar plasma cannon and continue fighting." Harrison whistled softly. Stellar plasma cannons were the most powerful weapons known to exist in their region of the galaxy, capable of melting through the hulls of entire fleets in seconds. The fact that human technology could now withstand such attacks represented a complete paradigm shift in interstellar military capabilities. "What about production capacity?" Harrison asked. "One invincible ship is impressive, but we need to think about fleet-wide applications. The mining operation on Kepler 442b has expanded dramatically," Elena replied. "We're now extracting approximately 50 tons of raw terrestrium per week, and our shaping facilities can process about 70% of that into usable forms." The door to the observation deck slid open, and General Morrison entered with a tablet full of urgent communications. Her expression was grim as she approached them. "We have a problem," she announced without preamble. "The Corvan Empire has issued a formal inquiry about our military buildup. They're demanding to inspect our newest vessels under the Galactic Peace Accords." Harrison felt his stomach drop. The Corvan Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy and possessed military technology that had kept humans in a subordinate position for decades. Their energy weapons could reduce entire planets to molten slag, and their fleets numbered in the thousands. "Can we refuse the inspection?" Elena asked. Morrison shook her head. "Not without providing justification that would raise even more questions. We have 3 weeks to prepare for their arrival." "No." The three of them stood in silence, watching the terrestrium armored ship through the viewport. The vessel represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, but it might also become the catalyst for a conflict they were not yet ready to fight. "We need to accelerate the testing program," Harrison decided. "I want to know exactly what this ship can do before the Corvans arrive." Over the following days, the prototype vessel underwent intensive combat trials in the asteroid fields beyond Pluto. Remote-controlled platforms equipped with various alien weapon systems fired everything from basic energy beams to advanced disruptor charges at the ship's hull. The results exceeded even their most optimistic predictions. Energy weapons that should have vaporized sections of the hull simply bounced off the terrestrium armor without leaving so much as a scorch mark. Projectile weapons fared no better, with even depleted uranium rounds failing to penetrate the revolutionary material. Captain Sarah Chen, the test pilot for these dangerous experiments, reported from the ship's bridge with barely contained excitement. "Command, I'm reading 0 hull damage after 37 minutes of continuous bombardment. The armor isn't even warm to the touch." Dr. Marcus Chen, who had been monitoring the tests from the command center, reviewed his instruments with amazement. "The material isn't just deflecting the energy," he reported. "It appears to be absorbing and dispersing it harmlessly through its crystalline structure." Elena watched the data streams with growing confidence. "This confirms our theoretical models. Terrestrium exists in a quantum state that makes it fundamentally incompatible with energy-based attacks." Admiral Harrison authorized increasingly powerful tests as the week progressed. Weapons that could crack moons barely scratched the ship's surface. Even experimental antimatter charges, carefully detonated at safe distances, produced no visible damage to the terrestrium-protected areas. But the real breakthrough came when they discovered that the material's protective properties extended beyond simple defense. Ships armored with terrestrium could ram through enemy vessels without taking damage, turning them into unstoppable battering rams capable of devastating entire fleets. "It's like having ships made of pure force," Captain Chen reported, after a test involving controlled collisions with decommissioned vessels. "We punched through a heavy cruiser's hull like it was made of paper, and our armor didn't even register an impact." As the Corvan inspection date approached, humanity faced a crucial decision. They could attempt to hide their technological breakthrough and hope the alien inspectors missed the significance of the new armor, or they could reveal their capability and deal with the political consequences. Elena argued for disclosure. "We've reached a point where concealment is becoming impossible. Better to control the revelation than have it discovered accidentally." Morrison disagreed. "The moment we reveal this technology, every species in the galaxy will either want to steal it or destroy us to prevent us from using it." Harrison found himself caught between scientific optimism and military pragmatism. What about a limited demonstration? Show them enough to establish that we've developed new defensive capabilities, but not enough to reveal the full extent of our advantage. The debate continued for days as teams of diplomats, scientists, and military strategists tried to develop an approach that would satisfy Corvan curiosity without triggering a galactic crisis. Finally, Elena proposed a solution. We tell them we've discovered a new alloy with enhanced defensive properties. Not a lie, but not the complete truth either. We demonstrate its effectiveness against conventional weapons but don't reveal its immunity to energy attacks. Morrison nodded slowly. That might work, but we'll need to be very careful about which weapons we allow them to test against our armor. Harrison authorized the preparation of a carefully choreographed demonstration. A section of terrestrium armor would be mounted on a test platform and subjected to various projectile weapons, while Corvan observers watched. The display would be impressive enough to explain their increased confidence without revealing the true revolutionary nature of their discovery. The Corvan inspection fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 3 massive vessels that dwarfed anything in the human navy. Their ships were elegant and deadly, with smooth curves that concealed weapon systems capable of sterilizing worlds. Commander HFY, the Corvan military attaché, was a tall, crystalline being whose species had dominated interstellar warfare for over a millennium. His multifaceted eyes missed nothing as he toured human facilities, and his questions demonstrated a thorough understanding of metallurgy and weapons technology. Your recent construction projects show interesting departures from previous designs, he observed as they walked through the shipyard where the prototype vessel was docked. The hull appears unusually thick for a ship of this class. Elena maintained a calm demeanor despite her nervousness. We've been experimenting with new alloy compositions that allow for better protection without significant weight increases. HFY's head turned toward her with sharp interest. New alloys? From which mineral sources? Remote mining operations have discovered several promising deposits, Harrison interjected smoothly. Nothing revolutionary. Just incremental improvements in our metallurgical capabilities. The demonstration took place in a controlled environment, with multiple recording devices capturing every detail for later analysis. The Corvan delegation watched as various projectile weapons fired at the terrestrium test plate, which remained completely undamaged despite impacts that should have shattered ordinary armor. Impressive, HFY admitted, his crystalline features reflecting the lights from the test chamber. Your defensive improvements are more significant than we anticipated. Elena held her breath as the Corvan commander examined the test plate closely, his sensors analyzing every aspect of the material's composition. For several tense minutes, he remained silent while his equipment gathered data. The atomic structure is unusual, he finally commented. I am unfamiliar with this particular metallic arrangement. Morrison stepped forward carefully. Our metallurgists have been working with exotic element combinations that don't occur naturally in most star systems. HFY nodded, apparently satisfied with the explanation. We would be interested in establishing trade agreements for this technology. Harrison exchanged glances with his colleagues. Our production capabilities are still quite limited. We're barely able to supply our own defensive needs at this point. The Corvan delegation departed after 3 days of inspections and demonstrations, apparently convinced that humanity had achieved incremental improvements rather than a revolutionary breakthrough. Their final report classified human defensive capabilities as moderately enhanced and recommended continued monitoring but no immediate action. Elena felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as she watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. They had successfully concealed the true nature of terrestrium. But she knew this was only the beginning of their challenges. How long do we have? Harrison asked as the senior staff gathered for a debriefing. Morrison consulted her intelligence reports. Our analysts estimate 6 to 12 months before someone develops sensors capable of detecting terrestrium's unique properties. After that, concealment becomes impossible. Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity now possessed technology that could change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The question was whether they could develop and deploy it quickly enough to ensure their survival when the secret inevitably came to light. "Then we'd better get to work," she said quietly. "The galaxy is about to become a very different place." The Galactic Council chamber fell into stunned silence as Ambassador Kreth of the Andromedan Collective finished presenting his evidence. Holographic displays showed detailed sensor readings that left no room for doubt. Humanity had developed technology that made energy weapons completely ineffective. Elena Vasquez sat in the human delegation section, watching as representatives from 47 different species processed the implications of what they had just learned. The secret of terrestrium had finally been exposed, not through military action but through the persistent investigation of one of the galaxy's most advanced scientific civilizations. "The humans have violated the technology sharing accords," declared Chancellor Vex of the Corvan Empire, his voice booming through the chamber's translation systems. "They have developed revolutionary defensive capabilities and concealed them from the galactic community for over 2 years." Elena stood slowly, her heart pounding as hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. As humanity's chief scientific representative, the burden of explanation fell on her shoulders. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "Humanity has indeed discovered a new material with extraordinary defensive properties. We initially kept this information classified while we studied its implications for galactic stability." Ambassador Kreth's crystalline form shimmered with what Elena had learned to recognize as skepticism. "Our analysis suggests this material renders energy weapons obsolete. Such a discovery fundamentally alters the military balance that has maintained peace for centuries." Elena nodded, knowing that denial was no longer possible. "The material we call terrestrium does possess remarkable resistance to energy-based attacks. However, we have used this technology purely for defensive purposes." Chancellor Vex leaned forward, his bulk casting shadows across the chamber floor. "Defensive technology can become offensive with minimal modification. A ship immune to energy weapons becomes an unstoppable weapon itself." The observation was accurate, and Elena knew that several human vessels had already been modified to take advantage of this capability. The prototype ship that had passed Corvan inspection months earlier had since been joined by 12 others, each one capable of devastating conventional fleets through ramming attacks alone. "The Andromedan analysis indicates that this material exists in a quantum superposition state," Kreth continued, his multiple voice harmonics creating an eerie effect through the translation system. "Such matter should not be stable under normal conditions. We demand to know how humans achieved this technological breakthrough." Elena glanced at Admiral Harrison, who nodded almost imperceptibly. They had prepared for this moment, knowing that full disclosure would eventually become inevitable. "We discovered terrestrium in its natural state on a previously unexplored world," Elena explained. "The material appears to have formed through processes we do not yet fully understand. We have developed techniques for shaping and utilizing it, but we did not create the fundamental substance." This revelation caused a stir throughout the chamber as delegates began rapid consultations with their advisors. The implications of naturally occurring quantum-stable matter were staggering, suggesting that the galaxy contained resources and phenomena that even the most advanced civilizations had never encountered. Director Zimra of the Galactic Science Consortium rose from her position in the center section. "If this material exists naturally, then other deposits may be discovered. We request immediate sharing of all survey data and extraction techniques." Elena had expected this demand, but it still sent a chill down her spine. Terrestrium gave humanity its first genuine advantage in a galaxy dominated by species with superior technology and resources. Sharing that advantage could eliminate the defensive capabilities that might ensure human survival. "The extraction process is extremely complex and dangerous," she replied carefully. "It requires precise electromagnetic manipulation techniques that took our best scientists months to develop." Chancellor Vex's expression darkened. "Are you refusing to share this technology?" Elena looked around the chamber, seeing expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. The moment she had dreaded for 2 years had finally arrived. Humanity would either have to surrender their technological advantage or face the combined opposition of dozens of alien civilizations. "We are willing to discuss technology sharing arrangements, Elena said, choosing her words carefully. But we must consider the implications for galactic stability. Widespread access to immunity from energy weapons could destabilize existing peace agreements. Ambassador K. Reth's form flickered with what Elena recognized as amusement. You speak of stability, while secretly developing weapons that could threaten every civilization in this chamber. Admiral Harrison stood beside Elena, his military bearing obvious even among the diverse alien delegates. With respect, Ambassador, humanity has not used these capabilities aggressively. Our entire fleet consists of fewer than 20 vessels equipped with terrestrium armor, compared to the thousands of ships controlled by major galactic powers. This statement caused another wave of discussion among the delegates. Human naval forces had always been considered negligible compared to established galactic powers, but 20 ships immune to energy weapons represented a significant threat if used strategically. 20 ships capable of destroying fleets 10 times their size, Chancellor Vex observed grimly. Your restraint thus far is noted. But restraint can change with leadership or circumstances. Elena knew he was right. The temptation to use humanity's new advantage aggressively had been a constant topic of debate among Earth's leadership. Only careful political maneuvering and the influence of scientific advisors had kept the military from pursuing more aggressive expansion. Director Zimra activated a holographic display showing galactic trade routes and territorial boundaries. This technology could provide immunity from the energy-based systems that protect commercial shipping lanes. A single human vessel could disrupt trade across multiple star systems. The economic implications were as significant as the military ones. Galactic commerce depended on energy-based defensive systems to protect cargo ships from pirates and raiders. Vessels immune to those defenses could revolutionize both legitimate trade and criminal activity. Elena realized that the galaxy's leadership was beginning to understand the full scope of what terrestrium represented. It was not simply a new type of armor, but a fundamental game-changer that could affect every aspect of interstellar civilization. We propose the establishment of a joint research committee, she said, hoping to redirect the discussion toward cooperation rather than confrontation. Humanity will share our knowledge of terrestrium extraction and processing in exchange for collaborative study of its applications and implications. Ambassador Kreth's harmonics shifted to what Elena had learned indicated deep consideration. Joint research implies shared control over production and distribution. Are humans prepared to accept galactic oversight of this technology? Elena hesitated, knowing that her answer would determine whether humanity faced cooperation or conflict with the rest of the galaxy. Accepting oversight would limit their strategic advantage, but might prevent the united opposition of dozens of alien civilizations. We are prepared to discuss oversight mechanisms that ensure responsible development while protecting the legitimate defensive needs of all participants, she replied. Chancellor Vex leaned back in his massive chair, his expression unreadable. The Corvan Empire requires access to terrestrium production facilities and complete technical documentation before we will consider any oversight arrangements. Elena felt her stomach tighten. The Corvans controlled the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and their demand essentially amounted to complete technology transfer with no guarantees of reciprocal sharing. The technology is extremely complex, Admiral Harrison interjected. Effective transfer would require extensive training programs and infrastructure development that could take years to implement. Then we suggest beginning immediately, Chancellor Vex replied coldly. Elena looked around the chamber, seeing the faces of representatives from civilizations that had coexisted in uneasy balance for centuries. The discovery of terrestrium had disrupted that balance in ways that were still unfolding. We need time to consult with our government, she said finally. This decision affects not just humanity, but the entire galactic community. Director Zimra nodded graciously. We propose a recess of 30 days for all parties to consider their positions. This matter is too important for hasty decisions. As the session adjourned and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Elena found herself surrounded by a small group of representatives from smaller civilizations. Their expressions were markedly different from those of the major powers. Ambassador Vasquez, said Representative Takor of the Sigma Centauri Federation, Some of us are concerned about the implications of major powers gaining access to this technology. Elena studied the group, recognizing delegates from several minor civilizations that had struggled to maintain independence in the face of pressure from larger galactic powers. If this technology becomes available only to established military forces, continued Representative Naya of the Crystalline Worlds, it could cement existing power structures in ways that smaller civilizations would find problematic. Elena began to understand a new dimension of the political challenge they faced. Terrestrium could either reinforce the dominance of existing galactic powers or provide smaller civilizations with defensive capabilities that might level the playing field. What are you suggesting? Elena asked carefully. Tekor glanced around to ensure their conversation was not being overheard. Perhaps technology sharing should be based on defensive need rather than political influence. Smaller worlds require protection just as much as galactic empires. Elena realized that humanity might have unexpected allies in the coming negotiations. Civilizations that had been marginalized by the existing military balance might support arrangements that provided them with access to defensive technology. Over the following weeks, Elena and her team conducted intensive diplomatic consultations with representatives from across the galactic spectrum. The responses varied dramatically based on each civilization's current position and strategic interests. The major powers demanded immediate and complete access to terrestrium technology, citing security concerns and the need to maintain galactic stability. Smaller civilizations advocated for controlled distribution based on defensive need rather than military capability. Meanwhile, intelligence reports from Kepler 442b indicated that other species had begun conducting survey missions in nearby star systems, clearly hoping to discover their own sources of terrestrium or similar materials. The cat is out of the bag, Admiral Harrison observed during a strategy session at the human embassy. Every civilization in the galaxy is now looking for quantum-stable materials. Elena nodded, reviewing reports that showed increased mining activity across dozens of star systems. The discovery of terrestrium has triggered a new kind of arms race, but instead of building weapons, everyone is searching for the materials to make weapons irrelevant. Dr. Marcus Chen, who had joined the diplomatic mission as a technical advisor, pulled up geological surveys from the embassy's database. The quantum conditions necessary for terrestrium formation are extremely rare. Our current estimates suggest that fewer than 1 in 10,000 star systems might contain suitable deposits. This information provided some strategic comfort, as it meant that terrestrium would likely remain scarce even if other civilizations discovered their own sources. However, it also increased the pressure on humanity to maintain control over their existing extraction operations. Elena stood at the window of her embassy quarters, looking out at the sprawling city that served as the galactic government's headquarters. Ships from hundreds of different civilizations filled the skies, representing a diversity of life and culture that never failed to amaze her. Somewhere among those ships were representatives who would soon decide whether humanity's discovery would lead to greater galactic cooperation or trigger conflicts that could reshape interstellar civilization. The future remained uncertain, but Elena knew that the discovery of terrestrium had already changed everything. Energy weapons, the dominant military technology for thousands of years, were becoming obsolete. The galaxy would need to adapt to a new reality, where defensive capabilities could neutralize even the most powerful offensive systems. As she prepared for the final negotiation sessions, Elena wondered whether future historians would mark this moment as the beginning of a new age of peace or the catalyst for the most devastating conflicts the galaxy had ever seen. The answer would depend on whether civilizations could learn to coexist with technology that fundamentally altered the balance of power among the stars.